it was a badge of honor to be like, yes, I am drowning and I am working 18-hour days. That's craziness. No one deserves to live like that. If you take nothing else from this episode, please know no one deserves to live buried under their to-do list. That is not a life. That is not living. And that's exactly why taking this time away when you're feeling all of that push and pull and you don't know what's next, that's exactly why the best thing I can recommend to you is just step away. It's gonna be scary. I promise you that. But when I stepped away, what was next found me. Welcome to the Overwhelmed and Over It podcast. I am your host, Gabs, and I am here to bring you this podcast dedicated specifically to helping founders like you build unforgettable businesses without burning yourself out. Each week, you'll hear me take conversations beyond surface level with experienced founders and entrepreneurs so that they can share their stories, strategies, and lessons learned along the way with you so that you have a less stressful and more successful business. Let's dive into this week's entrepreneur. All right, I am back. I thought I was doing it live. LinkedIn had other plans, but I've been gone for about 6 weeks unintentionally. I went away for the summer and had all of our episodes recorded and planned, and then came back and I just was not in a good energy. And when I talk about being overwhelmed and over it, that was definitely my vibe as a founder when I got back from my summer trip. So I recorded my last podcast episode in July and the last one aired about a month ago. And in that time, I realized I needed to step away from my life as I knew it. I was in a place of trying to force things to happen. And I'll just be fair, like I couldn't do it anymore. And I find it interesting. I'm recording this podcast on September 14th of 2024. And just this morning, I actually saw a post around Kevin Hart closing all of his vegan restaurants because of very similar reasons. They were trying to force it to happen. They had this belief that it was what needed to happen, and they tried and tried and tried, but the numbers and the business model just wasn't there, and something wasn't in alignment. And so they've made the choice to just shut everything down. And I think for many of us as founders or entrepreneurs or business owners, when you go to shut something down, whether it is an entire business or just a simple service that you had, it feels like a grieving experience. It feels like something is broken and you are leaving something behind. And so that is a lot of what has been happening behind the scenes with me. I wanted to take today's episode to come back because one, the podcast has a new name. Hello, Overwhelmed and Over It podcast. I'm so happy to welcome you into this world, but also just because I've been gone for a while. And for those of you who have messaged me and DM'd me and called and texted me to just be like, hey, yo, I have not seen you or heard from you. Where are you? Are you alive? Are things okay? They are. I'm good. I had just truthfully, honestly hit max capacity as a human being, and I could not keep pushing. And so I needed to take a step back. Today's episode is really going to be around giving you some of that background around that sabbatical, what my time looked like, why I needed it, and even more so, what lessons came on the other side of stepping away for 6 weeks. Because if you are a small business founder or entrepreneur, you know how scary 6 weeks walking away actually feels like. And so I'm excited to share with you what positive things can come on the other side of that. So with that, let's dive into where the heck has Gabs been and what has been going on over the last few weeks. Many of you know that I am what I like to call a slow nomad. And so that for me means we typically live somewhere for like a year or two before we move on to the next place. In the last 10 years or 11 years, our family has lived in 6 different states. So if that kind of gives you a clue of like capacity and how frequently we move. And no, we're not Army. No, it's not usually for jobs. It is usually just because I am somewhat, as I like to say, a gypsy, and I like to go experience new places. Some of it has been for health-related reasons for our youngest, and some of it has been just because it's our life and we get to make that choice. And so part of those moves means our summers are typically spent taking the kids back home to Georgia, which is where my husband and I were both born and raised. So that way the kids get to spend their summer with family and friends that they usually don't get to see much throughout the year. Traditionally, what that looks like is one of my husband or I will take them back home to Georgia. We drop them off there with grandparents, and then we will go back home to wherever we are living at the time. However, this year, there were a couple of reasons I didn't do that. One was we flew the kids on companion passes, which meant we had to fly on the same itinerary, so there wasn't that going back and forth for me. And then two, my youngest has had just really significant ups and downs with her health in the last couple of years, and I just emotionally was not at a place to leave her and feel like I could be on a 4-hour flight away in case she needed intervention with her asthma and her care. So I stayed, and as great and as wonderful as it was to visit and see all of my family and friends that I haven't gotten to see and really spend quality time with in a long time, it was a lot. So I am someone who needs a lot of alone time. I am in the human design world. I'm a reflector, which means that I kind of take in everyone's energy around me, and then I kind of process all of it and reflect it back to the world around me, which just means I'm really soaking up a lot all the time. And so when I'm around people a lot, it really wears on me. So when I went back home this summer, unintentionally, I had not prepared myself that being with people 24/7 for those several weeks that we were there, what that was going to mean for me. When I got home back to Phoenix, which is where we currently live, I realized I was just at max ability to process and to show up. I needed to literally just be. I remember when I made my announcement that I was going on my sabbatical on socials, like I literally said to people, I'm calling it a be present sabbatical. I didn't have any goals for this sabbatical. I didn't have any, dreams, wishes, hopes, things that were going to happen. I just needed to be with the people that I live with the family unit I have created, and with myself, and clearing all of the energy that I had picked up over the summer. So I did that. I did continue to serve my existing clients that I have, but I did take a break from networking and building new relationships. There was even a very incredible, powerful conference that was here that I really had planned on attending with some girlfriends who even flew in for the event, called Powerhouse Women, that I opted not to go to because I knew I just was not in a place that I could go sit in that room and soak up that energy. And then even though I feel like I have become really quite effective at content creation and becoming more visible, and I began to actually love it and enjoy it again, I really wasn't sure what kind of energy I wanted to continue putting out in the world, or what I even wanted to be known for. I honestly just needed to hit pause. And that's what I've done over about the last 6-ish weeks, was just be me. I was Gabs, and that was it. I didn't run around with any titles. I didn't run around with any expectations. I just was Gabs. And so there was something that happened over the summer that, when I look back at it now, I think really triggered this, besides the fact of kind of being with people 24/7 and that being really overwhelming for me. My first book, the Women Thrive Volume 3 anthology, was released just before my trip back home. This was kind of an unexpected to writing this book, but there was something about the book coming out that opened the door to conversations with people that I have known and had relationships with for a very long time, that allowed conversations that were deeper and more influential to happen than we had ever had in our relationships together. And I don't think it even had anything to do with the actual words I wrote in the book, because the book only had come out about 2 weeks before I landed in Georgia. So many of those people hadn't even actually read it yet. But I think there was some sort of like unspoken permission, knowing that I had poured my deepest, darkest moments onto those pages, that created a safe space for these conversations to happen that we had just never had before. There was one evening where I was having a pretty casual conversation with someone who's very close to me. Before I knew it, that conversation got really real really fast. And if you know me, that's not a surprise, right? Like surface level conversations are not my thing. I'm here to talk about real life, real dreams, real goals, real shit, or I'd rather not talk at all because I'm perfectly okay being alone. So she and I had a very beautiful conversation filled with hugs and tears and dreams and things that we had never talked about or had never been said for years. As we're having this conversation, the door opened up around some things that are going on in her life right now that she would like my help and support with. That is in alignment with the work that I have been doing over the last several years. I was very excited to have that conversation with her and for that door to open. Except when the door opened to start talking about that, she kind of said to me, I'm ready to do this work. I'm ready for your help, but I don't fully understand the work you do or how it will help me get there. That kind of put me on a pause because when you are a founder or an entrepreneur, you are so intimately involved in your business. I'm talking about it was your brainchild, you birthed it, you created it, you have watched it grow up, you have literally written the words on the paper that are behind the business, you've practiced that elevator pitch, you have written all the social media content, you have introduced the business over and over and over. And so when she said to me, I know you can help me, but I don't understand how, and I'm not even sure what the first step is, I'll be honest with you guys, that caught me so off guard that I didn't have the greatest answers for her either. It literally tripped me up. As painful as this moment was, because again, this business was my baby and I had been working on it for so long and so hard, it was the permission, honestly, that I needed to just be me. To stop trying to be Gabs, the business owner, to stop trying to be Gabs, the insert whatever title I was testing out in the moment to try and resonate when I was in network opportunities. It gave me permission to just be me. And it also made me realize while there are certain people in this world I want to help and I want to support, maybe that's not the best model for my business, and maybe I had been forcing it to happen. I have had just as many pivots in entrepreneurship as I have as years as an entrepreneurship. Changing or trying something new is not scary to me. I'm not afraid of working hard and building from the ground up. But there was one thing when it came to being a founder and entrepreneur that I hadn't tried yet, which was stop forcing things to happen. As I came back and realized I just was at max capacity and couldn't keep going, I realized I was forcing clarity instead of finding it. And after spending 6 weeks of just trying to find it, I can tell you, my friends, that that is a completely different experience. Over the last several weeks of trying to find clarity, I realized that there really truly are two things that have not only held me back in my entrepreneurial journey, but truthfully in my life. You'll hear a lot of times in business, there's blocks, right? It's, are you fixing top of funnel problems or are you fixing mid funnel problems? And that's the business side of things. But then also, if you are a spiritual entrepreneur, you'll have those same questions. Like, what are you blocking that's not bringing that success to you in your business? I realized there's two things that have continued to carry with me, and I just really hadn't sat down to deal with them or to talk about them. The reason I want to share these with you is because I know for a matter of fact, I'm not alone, that these are the two blocks that are holding back my success in life and in business. I know that to be true because in the last 6 weeks, as I've sat down to look at all of the people I have worked with in the last 4.5 years of being an entrepreneur, and all of the different services I've offered and all of the different teams and businesses that I have worked with, there are a couple consistencies among them, and they relate to these two things, which means I am relating to and calling in people who have the same challenge, and I need to share this message so that way those people who are struggling with those challenges can start to break free of them. So let's get started. The very first one, my perfectionism is going to be the death of me, literally and figuratively. And you will start to see this duality of emotions be a pretty common theme that we talk about on the podcast going forward. Oh, perfectionism. You have been the leader of the overwhelmed team and the dictator of my life for so long. I am literally willing to bet my children's inheritance that you have already stolen years off of my life. But thanks to this quick little break I've taken, I'm not letting that happen anymore. Because up until this point, as an entrepreneur and as a founder, I leaned really heavy on my corporate project management and product management experience to run my business. And while I think there's a lot of perks to that, I also think it got me trapped in a really unhealthy cycle, because my business cycle up until this point, what it looked like was I would sit and I would dream up a new idea for business, whether that be a new business altogether or a new service in my business or a new person to support. And then I would brainstorm and I would plan and I would plan and I would plan some more. And then I would double check the plan and triple check the plan and make sure all my I's were dotted and all my T's were crossed. And then once I felt really good about the plan, I would sit and create this unrealistic timeline that I could achieve all of those things for that launch. And I would drive myself crazy trying to get it done. I'm talking working from 5 a.m. to 2 a.m., not sleeping, missing out on events with my family, like all of the things, because I was so buried into this plan that I had created and this unrealistic timeline that I had to hold myself to. Then when I would release it, get all the things out there, and suddenly it wouldn't be the thing that took off because, surprise, I was too close to it to see all of the blind spots and see all of the gotchas and see all the strategy parts of this thing that I missed. I would be super brokenhearted when that wasn't the part of my business that took off and was super successful. So I'd scrap it all, throw it all away, and start this really psychotic cycle all over again of trying to do it completely perfectly before I would even start. That perfectionism, it was killing me. It was killing my business, and it was the enemy of seeing true progress and growth in myself and my business, because I would start to think, oh my gosh, something's wrong with me or my ideas. And I would keep doing this pivot over and over again, but they were not successful because I wasn't actually solving the problem. I was just trying to do what I knew how to do. And I was trying to be so perfect at that thing that I was missing all the other parts. And I was really, really holding back myself in my business. That actually led me into lesson number 2 pretty perfectly, which is that my dad was right. 17 years ago, my dad made a statement to me, and I rolled my eyes so hard at him. And if you can't tell, I was a teenager then. But yes, my dad was right. I don't handle stress well. But you know what? You've heard me talk about it before. I'm going to go back and visit that statement from 17 years ago, because the inner child healing is where it's all at. Fun fact, inner child healing started for me at the Success Becomes Me conference last year. And this year I'm speaking at the Success Becomes Me conference. I'm super excited to take the stage this year. That's happening in November, because I have so much of a journey to share from that, including this right here. I remember very vividly 17 years ago, I was standing in front of my dad. He was at his computer working. I was super overwhelmed and complaining about something probably not that important, but as a teenager, it was super important at the time. He looked at me very matter-of-factly, as an engineer does, and he said, "You don't handle stress very well." I remember being gutted by that statement and being so heartbroken. And I think subconsciously, I started signing up for a more stressful life to prove to myself that I didn't need to be offended by that statement, because I do handle stress well. I wanted to prove that I was worthy and capable of handling all the stressful situations in the world. I just kind of kept signing up for more. And that really, really manifested itself when I decided to give entrepreneurship a try, because entrepreneurship was never kind of on my purview. It was never something like I remembered wanting to do as a kid or that I ever really had exposure to. It's something that kind of fell in my lap based upon the circle that I ran in the corporate world, and just decided it was something I actually enjoyed. And then I wanted to go after it. And naturally, like everything else in my life, I'm still proving that point from 17 years ago, right? So like I can't just go be an entrepreneur and do one thing really well and enjoy it and live, a decent pace. I have to go make it hard, and I have to go make it stressful. So when I decided to become an entrepreneur, I didn't launch one business. I launched 3 in under 4 years. I didn't set goals to just serve 3 or 4 clients really, really well. I set goals to serve 300. I remember when I started writing the book last year, and I was so excited, and I started telling all of my circle that I was writing the book. They literally laughed at me, like in my face laughed at me, not because they didn't want the book and not because they didn't think that my story was worth sharing, because it is, and they've all given me extremely positive feedback on the book, but because they knew how full my plate was. And they knew my capacity was literally in the negative. So it's like, what business that I have signing up for writing a book? But that's just how I've done it. That is what my entrepreneurship journey has looked like over the last 4.5 years, because I wanted to be so perfect at it, and I wanted to make it look like I could do all the damn things, that I kept signing up for more stuff. But I wasn't doing any of it really well. That's the interesting part of perfectionism, is we get so wrapped up in wanting to do it so perfectly that we almost get tunnel vision, that we forget about the things that matter. We stop doing the stuff that actually matters. I started doing crazy things, like every single offer I launched, every single service I had, I was making the service cheaper and the access to me and the things I would do for you as a client more. So it's like so backwards, because I was just burying myself in work and things to do, and surely was not making enough money for the amount of work that I was doing. And I thought I was doing that because, one, I can do all of it perfect. I could do it more perfect than anyone else. Let me just do it. Let me just take it. And then also look how good I handle stress. Like, it was a badge of honor to be like, yes, I am drowning and I am working 18-hour days. That's craziness. No one deserves to live like that. If you take nothing else from this episode, please know, no one deserves to live buried under their to-do list. That is not a life. That is not living. And that is what I know so clearly now. Because you can't be doing all the things. You cannot be in the tunnel with the shovel, digging the holes, digging out, and also expect to know where you're going. I struggled with this a lot because I was a multi-passionate problem solver, meaning I can do both really well. I can sit and dig and execute and do all the tasks in the world. I can also dream up the greatest strategies in the world. Okay? I have a client right now who told me a single phone call with me, 60-minute phone call with me, gave his team back enough time worth 2.5 FTEs a week. You guys, one single phone call worth 60 hours. I will shout that from the rooftops until the day I die. So just be prepared to hear it. But that's the kind of thing that I'm saying, is like when you can do both, and usually as a founder and an entrepreneur, you can, that's why you find yourself getting caught up in both. But what I so clearly see now is that even if you can do both, you cannot be both at the same time. This is why I believe in small business and entrepreneurship so much. Because one, I believe wholeheartedly it is the way that we bring systemic change to treating people like numbers in an assembly line. I believe this is how we bring back the customer experience and how we start to treat people like people again. Because with every single small business who just focuses on taking care of their customers and lets everything else come as a byproduct of that, that is one positive experience that creates a ripple effect in this world for every customer that you touch, who continues to bring that ripple to every person they touch throughout that day, throughout that week, that month, that year. But also, entrepreneurs are the greatest collaborators I have ever met in my life. I believe that is a place where when you want to sit in an executor space, you go find someone to collaborate with, to be your strategy and to be your guide. Whether that is a coach that you hire, whether that is the person you sit next to at your co-working space, whether that is a true co-founder that you bring into your business, you find some sort of partner who gets to fill that gap for you, and vice versa. When you're ready to sit into strategy lane and be a visionary and think of all these out of the box ideas, you go find someone to be your executor in the same way. I realized in the last 4.5 years of running my business, that's what I haven't done. Now, trust me, I have spent plenty of money on coaches, probably more than I should have at this point in business. But every single time I hired a coach, it was because I was looking at them to solve the revenue problem. That was it. I looked at them to solve a revenue problem, but that wasn't the problem. The revenue problem was a byproduct of I didn't handle the stress of being a founder and an entrepreneur well. So I got to the point where I thought being a founder wasn't for me, that I had taken a drastically wrong detour in life, and I was heartbroken. I was heartbroken to leave it. Like, y'all, I literally started figuring out, what does it look like to close down my business, to shut down my LLC and stop paying for my email and all of those things. But also, I was heartbroken to figure out what was next. My husband and I had conversations. Do I become a stay-at-home mom? Do I go back to a full-time job? None of it felt right. And that's exactly why taking this time away when you're feeling all of that push and pull and you don't know what's next, that's exactly why the best thing I can recommend to you is just step away. It's gonna be scary. I promise you that. Stop checking the bank account every day. So it's not gonna change because you're not doing anything to change it. But when I stepped away, what was next found me. While I was on my sabbatical, I was not on social. I was not sending emails. I was not doing marketing. I didn't have any ads running. I wasn't networking. I was doing 0 sales activities that you hear all the gurus tell you to do to grow your business. I had 4 new engagements that I started while I was away, all for people that came to me because they just wanted help and support to help them brainstorm and launch new experiences in their business. I have a hard time telling you, are those clients? Are they friends? Are they partners? Are they people in my network? I don't actually even know what to call them. But I love that because that's exactly what I envision when I look at running a business as a founder. Is those lines are so blurry because when you're working with other founders, there is no separation of friendship and clients and life and business. It's all intertwined together. If you get on a call with me to do a brainstorm battle buddy session, which is the single service offering I have now, that's it, is I am your partner to brainstorm and launch new experiences in your business. I hope you know we're going to talk about life. We're going to talk about business. We're going to talk about the real challenges you're having. We're going to talk about your real dreams, the dreams you're even scared to tell your spouse or your kids or to write on the piece of paper. We're going to talk about all of those things because we have to. That is the reality of being able to think out of the box and put our customers first and build businesses that are unforgettable without being overwhelmed, just because we need to build it with all of this considered and all of this included. And while you know me for 10-minute episodes, this one got long. I promise the other ones we're going back to our short, sweet episodes that you can quickly digest each week. Each week, you will get a new episode from either me solo or with other founders that I deeply, deeply respect and admire to learn how we are all building businesses in different industries, for different customers with different services, but we're all doing it uniquely in our own special way with our own superpowers so that way we can build a business that we care about, that makes an impact, and that doesn't overwhelm us and burn us out in the process. So this is my quote unquote official announcement. The Overwhelmed and Over It podcast is here. She is born. She is live. This is her first episode, and it's going to be the place where we very candidly talk about changing the way founders and customers experience business. Because I don't think that you can change the experience for one without the other. And I can just tell you, I've already talked to my guest next week. We talked this morning, brought me to tears, y'all. Like 10 minutes and I brought me to tears. So just get ready. Make sure that you are subscribed on your favorite podcast platform. You can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and then also on LinkedIn. I can keep you reminded there so that way you do not miss next week's episode. Thank you for tuning in today. I appreciate you so much. For those of you who checked in while I was gone, for those of you who continue to show up despite, I know this year has been the most challenging year for most founders that I know. You are walking a journey that has never been walked before because you are the only founder, the only entrepreneur to walk the exact shoes of your exact business, and you are doing a damn good job no matter how you feel. So I appreciate you. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful day, whatever day it is that you are listening to this podcast, and I will see you next week. With much love, your host, Gabs.